The girl has an incurable disease. As long as she gives birth to a child, she can be rejuvenated. And there are a total of 100 such cycles. Yet she is not happy at all. Because her first life was actually as a lowly palace maid in charge of cleaning. Every day, she doesn't even get to see a single male fly. What's even worse is that the only real man in the palace, the emperor, despite having a harem of 3,000 betties, has unintentionally produced no offspring in after 10 years on the throne. The imperial physicians cannot find the cause, and have no choice but to prescribe tonic medicine day after day. And our female lead is also very anxious at this moment. Because of a car accident, she was forced to bind with the many children, much blessing system. As long as she gives birth to children for the mission targets in various timelines, she can be reborn infinitely, and also receive a system reward of 1 billion in funds. Just as she was thinking about how to get pregnant, the emperor's personal palace maid actually found her. Hua, if you're free now, help me bring this cup of tea inside. My stomach is a bit uncomfortable. Before she could agree, the other person shoved a tray into her hands. Hua looked up. With that rosy complexion, she doesn't look uncomfortable at all. Could it be that there's something wrong with this cup of tea? But who would dare to poison the emperor's tea? That would be a grave crime, punishable by execution of one's entire clan. Soon she thought of it. These past couple of days, the emperor's temper has been very irritable. As a normal man, she still couldn't bear her own child. The ministers even submitted a memorial, suggesting the emperor select a son from the clan to establish as the crown prince. Although they are all from the same family, in the end, they are not his own descendants. Who would be willing to hand over the empire to someone else? Hua, at the calming tea in her hand, sighed. Resignedly, she walked towards the hall. Fortunately, the emperor's public reputation wasn't bad. At least he wasn't a tyrant. This put her mind at ease for a little while. But after just a few steps, she remembered another problem. Zhaoba. The emperor has so many women, yet none can bear a child. How can I be sure that I can? What if I can't conceive? Wouldn't this trip be a complete waste? Zhaoba was full of confidence. Don't worry, host. Your body has a very special constitution. As long as you can get close to the mission target, you will absolutely be able to conceive a child. All right then. She resigned herself and gritted her teeth. The incense burning in the hall was a special calming incense made by the pharmacist. It wasn't so pungent. Its scent was actually quite soothing. Hua steadied her nerves. She walked meekly to the table, quietly set down the tea from the tray. Emperor Chu Jin was reviewing memorials. A faint floral scent suddenly reached his nose. It was very light, but he noticed it immediately. He turned his head to look. It was an unfamiliar palace maid, quietly serving tea. He seems quite a meticulous in his work. She kept her head lowered the entire time. She did not look at him once. Although she hadn't seen his full appearance, just from this side profile alone, his looks were certainly not ordinary. Which palace are you from? How come I've never seen you before? Hua performed a bow. She replied, with her head still lowered. Your Majesty. This humble servant is Hua, who works in the courtyard. Sister Qiao Yu was feeling unwell this morning, and she was afraid of delaying your Majesty. So she sent me in her place. Her demeanor was humble, showing no sign of overstepping. Although she was grateful to Qiao Yu for giving her a chance to approach the emperor. This kind of opportunity, almost like being a scapegoat, she had no need to hide it. And hiding it didn't mean she would necessarily succeed. Instead, it will arouse the emperor's suspicion. An emperor's suspicion and paranoia run deep. She wouldn't think that just because she had bound with the system. She was the chosen one. Nor would she become arrogant because of it. Chu Jin saw that she kept her head lowered, not daring to look at him. He couldn't help but feel curious. Just what did that face look like? Raise your head. Let Zen see. Yes. Zi Hua's fingers, hidden in her sleeves, tightened slightly. Then she slowly raised her head. The moment she saw the emperor, she lowered her gaze again, avoiding direct eye contact with the emperor's face. Xiaoba felt frustrated by her lack of initiative. Host. Be brave, Zi Hua thought to herself. If you're so good, you do it. Just as Chu Jin had thought. The little palace maid's looks weren't bad. He was just a bit puzzled. A palace maid with such looks had been working in his palace all along, yet he hadn't noticed her at all. What are you carrying on you? He lifted his gaze to look. The little palace maid's waist was very slender. He estimated one hand could probably encircle it. Zi Hua was stunned for a second. She wanted to lower her head to check if she had any extra items on her person. But then, she remembered it would be improper to do so before the emperor. So she gave up. This servant isn't carrying anything. May your majesty please clarify? Why is there a faint floral scent on you? Hearing this, she breathed a sigh of relief. It's just this. Because she had relaxed, a smile naturally formed on her face. The corners of her lips held shallow dimples. She looked somewhat playful. Replying to your majesty, this humble maid often deals with flowers and plants. Perhaps some of their essence has transferred to me. Her eyes curved into smiles, visibly relaxed. After the previous tension faded, it made her seem less humble and more self-confident, making her exceptionally captivating. But now, he was not interested in those things. What's the use of being infatuated with beauty? They cannot bear children. This vast family estate of his, could it only end up benefiting the clan relatives? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh again. Is your majesty unwell? This humble maid will summon the imperial physician at once. Zi Hua seemed to have mustered all her courage, and cautiously asked, We are fine. Chu Jin rubbed the space between his brows, glanced at the memorials on the desk, and felt another headache coming on. Fengwu, take her out. Zi Hua was confused. After paying her respects to him, she followed the chief steward out. Shortly after they left, Chief Steward Ming Fu said cheerfully, From now on, you will serve by His Majesty's side. You need not attend to other duties. But what about Sister Qiao Yu? There isn't an open position above yet. Would it be inappropriate for her to barge in like that? She abandoned her post without permission. Naturally, she was sent to the Shinji-ku. Just remember this. What should be done, and what should not be done. Thank you, eunuch Ming Fu. Zi Hua bowed to him. He accepted the gesture with full composure. She ended up working at that shop without really knowing how. She was completely adorable. Previously, she was a third-rank palace maid. Now, she was directly promoted to first rank. Her dormitory was also changed, from a 4-person room to a single room. Qiao Yu, who thought she had escaped disaster, had only been smug for less than 2 minutes before she was informed that she had been sent to the Shinji-ku. Zi Hua, was it you? Did you say something about me in front of the emperor? If it weren't for you, why would I have been sent to the Shinji-ku? Qiao Yu, acting hysterical, found Zi Hua and immediately launched into a series of accusations. Her eyes were slightly red. It was clear that she was furious. Zi Hua frowned slightly and looked at her with some helplessness. You abandoned your post without permission, which displeased the emperor. What does that have to do with me? Those who survive in the imperial palace are all shrewd and cunning. Qiao Yu had originally intended for her to bear the emperor's wrath. Unexpectedly, the emperor not only didn't reprimand her, but also promoted her. I underestimated you, Zi Hua. Just you wait. One day I will return. When that time comes, I will witness all your misfortunes. Even as they dragged him away, Qiao Yu was still cursing. Zi Hua's heart trembled. In this backstabbing harem, Not long after the mission began, she had already made an enemy. Uncertain whether this was good or bad, the work after promotion was actually simple. It was just taking over Qiaoyu's duties, helping brew tea, delivering tea, and occasionally brewing tea for visiting officials. Easy and effortless, without much difficulty. The emperor was a workaholic. The people of Daki could live in peace and prosperity. Because the emperor cared deeply for his subjects, he was a wise ruler. But she always knew her place. She didn't act arrogant, just because she received the emperor's special attention. Instead, she got along well with the other palace maids. It seemed that to her, doing her job well was what mattered most. Zihua herself felt quite nervous. Having no experience in romance, she wasn't very confident about this mission resembling a conquest. An emperor's mind is profound. She feared that with one careless mistake, she would fall into an abyss. But she never expected this opportunity would soon present itself. She was delivering tea to the emperor as usual when she encountered Consort Shu. The palace maid behind her was still holding a tray. On the tray was a small ceramic jar. It likely contained something like a thick soup. The sky was almost dark. I'm afraid the intention lies elsewhere. Consort Shu's maternal family is the general's manor, with illustrious military achievements. He was a true master of warfare in his day. In recent years, the borders have been quiet, so he has retired behind the scenes and begun his retirement life. Even so, the glory of the general's manor remains. Eunuch Ming Fu went in to announce. He came out and nodded to Consort Shu with a smile. Zihua looked at the tray in her hands. After a moment's thought, she continued to wait. She is just a lowly citizen. It's better not to get involved in this commotion. Eunuch Ming Fu looked at her. He couldn't help but shake his head. In this palace, having stunning beauty isn't necessarily a good thing. Zihua smiled shyly. You flatter me, eunuch. My looks were given by my parents. I can only accept them as they are. I am 23 this year. In 2 more years, I can leave the palace. I only hope this face won't bring me disaster. She replied with downcast eyes and a submissive demeanor. Her eyes were clear, showing no trace of fluctuation. Eunuch Ming Fu was a shrewd man. He could naturally tell who was sincerely submissive and who had a pure heart. He couldn't help but stroke the horsetail whisk in his hand. He was quite satisfied with this little maid in his heart. She did not become arrogant from favor, nor did she rely on her looks to try and climb into the emperor's bed. Don't worry, women who leave the palace, no matter what, can still find a Placido belong. Feeling that eunuch Ming Fu's gaze was no longer on her, Zihua finally breathed a sigh of relief. Putting on an act in front of such a shrewd person, she didn't even know how she managed it. Suddenly, a startled cry came from the inner hall. Get out of my sight. Don't think I don't know what you're scheming. You actually help outsiders to pressure me. It seems you've grown a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. Chu Jin flicked his sleeve. All the memorials on the desk fell to the floor. Issue my decree. Consort Shu has been disrespectful to me. Let her stay in her palace to reflect on her mistakes behind closed doors. Consort Shu knelt on the ground, her face deathly pale. Your Majesty, your servant did it for you. It's merely about selecting someone from the clan. The empire will still belong to the Chu family in the future. Even my father says I'm useless. I cannot bear children. Your servant had no other choice but to come and persuade your Majesty. Your Majesty, your Majesty. A group of attendants dragged her away. In the short term, she won't be able to leave her own palace. Zihua hesitated about whether to go in. Then she saw eunuch Ming Fu glance at her. He entered first. She sighed, and ultimately followed him in. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. Consort Shu was also acting with the kingdom's best interests in mind. It's just that her methods were not entirely appropriate. Your Majesty, why get so angry over this? You might harm your imperial health. Eunuch Mingfu is an old-timer who has served by your majesty's side. He naturally understands your majesty's temperament well. He pinched the bridge of his nose tightly. His chest heaved with considerable anger. Does this mean I will never have a child in this lifetime? I used to think a child would come. It just wasn't the right time yet. But 10 years have passed, and I haven't seen even a hint of one. This has plunged him into deep self-doubt. Eunuch Mingfu didn't know how to comfort him. He could only change the subject. Your Majesty, your imperial health is what matters most. Zihua silently tittied things up to the side, but her ears were perked up, trying to hear what they were discussing. Enough. Everyone may leave. She placed the neatly arranged memorials on the desk. She stole a glance at the emperor, whose expression seemed somewhat off. His face was flushed with an unnatural redness. She panicked momentarily. Your Majesty, what's wrong? I not only feel unusually hot. The moment he looked up, the figures before him seemed a bit blurry and indistinct. This servant will go summon the imperial physician immediately, she said, her voice flustered. If anything happened to the emperor here, she would be the only suspect present. This was no trivial matter. But she had just turned, and not yet taken a step. His wrist was grabbed by a powerful hand. Like an iron chain, Chu Jin was somewhat losing consciousness. He naturally knew what was happening to him. Help me. No matter who drugged him. In the end, this matter ended up benefiting her. 1 second later, Zihua woke up. Oh, my God. She actually did it with the emperor. Don't worry. I will compensate you. By my decree, appoint Zihua. Before he could finish speaking, the woman covered his mouth. This servant can leave the palace in 2 more years. Her voice was a bit shaky, carrying some fear and grievance, explaining word by word. My father and mother are still waiting for me to return and try the garden. This servant does not wish to stay in the palace. Chu Jin felt a bit like laughing. In this imperial harem, so many women want to become his. Now, he was actively offering her a position, and she actually refused. After all these years, this was the first time he had been rejected by a woman. Wouldn't coming into my harem be good? Fine clothes and exquisite food. You would never have to worry about making a living for the rest of your life. Nor would you need to serve others. Zihua sniffled, said, with a choked, tearful voice. The palace is certainly good. But this servant misses my father and mother. The intentions of many palace maids are quite simple. Leave the palace when they reach the right age, taking the rewards obtained in the palace. I can still open a small shop outside. This life can be considered free from worries about food and clothing. But when she says these things, it's merely a superficial explanation. She is now just a palace maid, and being sent into the rear palace like this is no different than throwing her to the wolves. Before having absolute confidence, she firmly refuses to enter the rear palace. Moreover, if she is obtained too easily, I'm afraid the emperor wouldn't care about her either. Chu Jin saw that her expression didn't seem fake, and fell into some self-doubt. Is he, as the emperor, really this uncharming? Since that's the case, then let it be as you wish. This matter happened in the inner hall, and only a few people knew about it. Those in the outer hall didn't know what happened inside. They only knew that this palace maid named Zihua had a higher status now. Although she was still a palace maid, she wasn't assigned to do many tasks anymore. Returning to her room, her little heart was still pounding. Ignoring the physical discomfort, she couldn't wait to ask the system, "Am I pregnant now?" "Yes, please host, nurture this little life." "Well, this system is for having many children and much happiness. Please also adhere to the system's central idea." It must be said, the system really has something to it. Just once and she's pregnant. It turns out the previous dynasty's killings were too heavy. And heaven's retribution is never late. That is precisely why the present emperor still has no heir. Her arrival could be considered a salvation for the Great Qi. After Zihua left, the emperor launched a thorough investigation into the drugging incident. In the end, a palace maid named Ming Xin was uncovered. She was once the empress's personal maid. The emperor and empress married when they were young. They did once share a very sincere and profound affection. However, changes later on caused the two to gradually grow apart. When the empress was still the crown princess, she actually had been pregnant. It was a boy. But when she was 5 months pregnant, someone intentionally spilled oil on the floor, causing her to miscarry. The mastermind behind all of this was the then noble consort, who was also the emperor's cousin, the Empress Dowager's own niece. Yet, the emperor did not severely punish the noble consort. Furious, the empress stormed into the noble consort's quarters and slashed the noble consort with a sword, injuring her. In the end, he confined her in the Fengwu palace, under the pretext of recuperating from illness. She has rarely been seen in public all these years. If it truly was the empress who administered the drug, he probably wouldn't do anything about it. He is the one who failed her. The only fortunate thing is that his harem has not witnessed another incident of harming the imperial heirs. After all, there simply are no imperial heirs. This, however, has made things difficult for him. Since they cannot harm the imperial heirs, they turned instead to harm the true son of heaven himself. Zihua was tidying the flower pots in the inner hall when I saw the emperor with a face full of. He walked in looking distraught. The emperor acted with disciplined restraint, as protocol demanded. Seeing that he showed no reaction, she mustered her courage and stepped forward. "What kind of tea would your majesty like today? This servant will go and brew it for you." Chu Jin snapped out of his daze. He gave her a deep, meaningful look. "I don't feel like drinking tea today. Come over and have some booze with me instead." Zihua froze for a second. Then she nodded. Truth be told, she wasn't very keen on going. Drinking could easily lead to trouble. Now that she had a child, she didn't want to stir up any more complications. But the emperor's favor was also her means of securing a stable position. Now that the emperor was interested in her, she could choose to play her cards right. But one cannot remain aloof. Inequality in status would cause her to lose everything. Chu Jin dismissed the other palace attendants. He sat down on the doorstep of the shop. Zihua was holding a pot of wine and 2 small cups. She stood to the side, hesitating about whether to sit down. Sit down. No need to be so reserved. Just treat it as an ordinary family chatting about daily life. His tone carried a trace of loneliness, having sat in this position for too long. That feeling of loneliness at the top made him shiver uncontrollably. When it came to state affairs, he strategized and planned with ease. But only in matters of romantic fate did he have no solution at all. "Your Majesty, I do not know what troubles you. But in all matters, your health is most important. Please do not harm your body with anger." Zihua sat down beside him. Her tone was gentle and soft, like a little oriole. It's best to inquire less about the emperor's affairs, especially given her current awkward status. It's better to just be a comforting presence. Chu Jin reached out, took the wine cup, and downed it in one go. Then he handed the cup back, gesturing for her to pour more wine. At this age, others already have a house full of children. They are even old enough to attend private school. He doesn't even have a shadow of one. Originally, if a palace maid served the emperor overnight, she would be given a bowl of contraceptive medicine. The fear was that she would conceive a royal heir. But now, there isn't a single child. Whether this baby wants to drink or not is already unimportant. "Your Majesty, please drink less." Watching the other person drink cup after cup, she was starting to feel a little worried. However, what Zihua feared still happened. Alcohol makes it easy for bad things to happen. Even the emperor is no exception. But in reality, A person who is truly drunk wouldn't have this thought. So it really boils down to one saying. A man, 3/10 drunk, puts on an act until you cry. Hua, wouldn't it be good to enter my harem? His tone carried a hint of temptation, just like a siren singing on the sea. Alluring but deadly. Your Majesty, you are drunk. She did not answer directly, but merely changed the subject. I'm not drunk. Suddenly, he reached out and directly pulled her into his embrace. This posture was far too intimate, and especially so right at the entrance to the Great Hall. Fortunately, the surrounding palace maids and eunuchs had all been dismissed. Otherwise, she would truly have no face to see anyone. Your Majesty, you must not. In a moment of panic, she blurted out directly. The system said, the baby has already been conceived. Before the pregnancy becomes fully visible, she did not dare to take this risk. Chu Jin fell silent. He had indeed been a bit impulsive. What are you thinking? I just wanted to hold you, that's all. Don't overthink it. A man's words are a deceiving devil. She sat there quietly, letting the other person hold her, feeling the body warmth emanating from him. Her purpose was pure. For the child, it was just his identity as the father. That made her unable to submit and stay for the child. Sigh. For now, she could only take one step at a time. In the magnificent palace, the two sat nestled together, embracing. The space was very quiet. It seemed things were about to spiral out of control. Who would have thought the next moment? An uninvited guest suddenly barged in, breaking this deadlock. Emperor, I heard you have arrested many people. Has something happened? Why are there no attendants in this palace? What have these people been doing? The Empress Dowager hurried in from outside, only to witness a scene that was an eyesore. What impropriety! Hua snapped back to reality, immediately pushed the emperor away, and knelt down. This humble maid pays respects to the Empress Dowager. May the Empress Dowager enjoy boundless fortune and peace. With so many consorts in the rear palace, you do not favor them. Instead, you fool around here with a palace maid. You are the emperor, not a profligate son of the wealthy. There are many women in the rear palace, but how many have borne children for him? Chu Jin was also somewhat annoyed. Every time he went with hope. Which time did he not return disappointed? Speaking of this, the Empress Dowager could only fall silent. Was she not the same? Every time she watched new beauties enter the palace, hoping they could bear branches and leaves for the royal family. But what was the result? All I got was disappointment. For 10 years, no one in the harem has been pregnant. She has gradually started to suspect if there's really something wrong with his son. Emperor, this grieving one understands your difficulties. But she is just a palace maid. You shouldn't have done this. The Empress Dowager hates palace maids the most in her life. The late emperor, because of one troublesome palace maid, took away the favor that belonged to her. Chu Jin sighed. Didn't mention the important matter from before. Took all the blame upon himself. It has nothing to do with her. It was I who forced her. The Empress Dowager was somewhat exasperated by his weakness. A dignified ruler of a nation, for the sake of a mere palace maid, actually debasing himself. Because of this, she glared several times at the woman on the ground. Hua's scalp went numb, but she didn't dare to look up. If she dared to utter one more unnecessary word, she might lose her life. Finally, Chu Jin couldn't stand it anymore, spoke up and told her to leave first. Returning to her room, Hua rolled up her pant leg and looked at her already scraped and skinless knee. She felt a wave of dismay in her heart. This body is really too delicate. It swelled up after just kneeling for a few minutes. Xiaoba thought she was worried about the baby. Quickly spoke up to comfort her. Host, actually, it's fine. The baby's vitality is very tenacious. It won't just die from one bit of exercise. Seeing the woman didn't respond, it then softly reminded again. For a woman to live securely in the imperial harem, she needs support from her maternal family and the emperor's favor. Clearly, she didn't have the former, so she could only rely on the latter. Forget it, I don't need to go that far. She shook her head at these words. Relying on looks to win favor is ultimately unsustainable. Fortunately, after that incident passed, the emperor and she grew somewhat closer. The two of them, whether with reason or not, would still exchange glances now and then. To say she wasn't tempted would be a lie. After all, with such a handsome man right in front of her, who wouldn't feel a little dazzled? But she was also very clear in her heart about the inherent flaws in men's nature. To survive in the deep palace, she couldn't easily give away her heart. She just wanted to quietly wait until her pregnancy showed. Unaware that over in the Shinji-ku, Qiao Yu had already sold her out completely. That Zi Hua is a scheming one. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have ended up in the Shinji-ku from the Yangtze Hall. She usually seemed so honest and well-behaved. Who would have thought she was such a cunning person? Qiao Yu's face twisted slightly. The endless laundry and inhumane treatment made her hatred grow stronger each time she mentioned Zi Hua. Whether the other person believed her or not, she would exaggerate and embellish the story. The woman standing beside her wore a black cloak, her face hidden from view, but her voice and figure revealed she was a woman. The woman deliberately lowered her voice. Other than that, haven't any other women gotten close to the emperor? Yes, but the emperor had them beaten to death. But this Zi Hua is quite resourceful. Look at how well she's living now. It's just puzzling. Why? After all this time, the emperor still hasn't made her a consort. Qiao Yu let out a scornful laugh. If someone ever targets Zi Hua, she will definitely be their sharpest blade. Understood? Take this. Keep your mouth shut. The woman took a money pouch from her bosom and tossed it over. Judging by the weight, it was clearly a substantial amount. Thank you for your reward, my lady. This servant will definitely not speak carelessly. Qiao Yu grinned so widely her back teeth showed. Silver is a wonderful thing. Ever since arriving at the Shinji depot, she never had enough to eat or wear. With this silver, she could manage quite a few things. However, everything happening here was unknown to Zi Hua. She was happily heading to stroll through the imperial garden. This season, the flowers were in full bloom. Even if she couldn't pick any, it was still a feast for the eyes. On the way, she tried hard to avoid the noble ladies, but someone still stopped her. So you're the palace maid who came into full round with the emperor? Such an explosive statement made Zi Hua turn around to look in shock. She immediately knelt. I pay my respects to noble consort Shan. Noble consort Shan is the legitimate daughter of the vice minister of war. Having been doted on since childhood, coupled with her high status, she was immediately granted the title of consort upon entering the palace. Her temperament was arrogant and domineering. She made quite a few enemies within the palace, but it was only in the early years that these consorts fought fiercely. Ever since, no one in the rear palace gave any orders. Everything became dull and uninteresting. Now, all they could do was compete for favor. Except for the 15th day of each month, when the emperor would go to Fengwu Palace, the rest of the time, it depended on him flipping the placard. If they didn't have some tricks up their sleeves, then they could only wait alone in the palace. The emperor's favor was the weather vane of this palace. If they were completely forgotten by the emperor, they were no different from being dead in the palace. But this only applied to those consorts without power or influence. Someone like Consort Shan, with her maternal family's support, wouldn't fall to such a state. However, when she learned that the emperor was infatuated with the palace maid, she completely broke down. So many consorts from illustrious families, yet he took a fancy to a powerless palace maid. It was like a slap to her face, stinging with pain. Lift your head and let me have a look. She wanted to see exactly what kind of appearance could captivate the emperor so completely. Jihua took a deep breath and slowly raised her head. In truth, her features were not striking. The key lay in her gentle, watery eyes, which were truly captivating to behold. Look at that fox spirit face you were born with. To linger in this palace is truly a waste for you. Virtuous consort toyed with her nail guard, pondering how to proceed. To scratch up the other's face. How about this? My Akai still needs a dining partner. If you two get together, I'll bestow some gifts so you can live comfortably. This blatant insult was grating to the ears. Zihua pressed her lips together. Her fingernails dug quietly into her palms. She spoke neither humbly nor arrogantly. Thank you for your kindness, your highness. But this servant is to leave the palace when she comes of age. I can only decline your gracious offer. She was a maid from the emperor's palace, different from the other palace maids. If virtuous consort wanted to arrange a marriage for her, she would still need the emperor's consent. Furthermore, she was already the emperor's woman. That eunuch called Akai. Would he dare to covet her? Even if he had 100 times the courage, he still wouldn't dare. Seeing her so composed, virtuous consort felt a surge of anger stuck in her chest. She suddenly leaned forward, viciously grabbing Zihua's chin. A cold glint shone in her eyes. You've already been intimate with His Majesty, yet you still pretend to be so chaste here. This consort wants to see just how long your arrogance will last. With that, she flung Zihua's chin away and left with her attendants. We respectfully see your highness off. Zihua clutched the corner of her garment, silently watching the other's retreating figure, knowing deeply that she could no longer remain obscure and unknown. The emperor's favor needs to be gained, but she also had to strive in other aspects. The best target was the Empress of Bai Palace. While pondering, she returned to the hall of mental cultivation. A few whispers reached her ears. Several palace maids who weren't usually close to her were huddled together, chattering and gossiping noisily, although she couldn't make out what they were saying. But their scrutinizing gazes, along with somewhat mocking smiles, let her know it was nothing good. Zihua pressed her lips together, walked over, and revealed a smile. What are you all talking about? Nothing. The several palace maids waved their hands in a fluster, avoiding her gaze, and pretending to be very busy. Although the imperial palace is large, there are also many people. Small matters and minor incidents are known everywhere in no time. Zihua, the emperor is looking for you. When eunuch Mingfu arrived, he rarely saw her with a furrowed brow and a troubled expression. Zihua also couldn't be bothered to tangle with these few people, so she turned around and walked towards the hall. The emperor was painting a very ordinary landscape painting. I pay my respects to your majesty. She performed the ceremonial greeting, then walked to the side to grind the ink. Chu Jin finished the stroke in his hand, then lifted his head to look over. Seeing her expression was as normal, he couldn't help but sigh in admiration that she really could endure and keep her composure. You were bullied and didn't even come to complain. I heard from Ming Fu that you encountered Consort Shan in the Imperial Garden. He didn't mind giving her a chance. Who would have thought Nazi didn't take the bait at all and showed no sign of targeting you? Consort Shin's temperament is more flamboyant, but she's not a bad person. However, your status as a palace maid truly does you an injustice if you regret it. He didn't continue. Repeatedly showing consideration for a palace maid was already his utmost limit. Yet, hearing this still felt somewhat uncomfortable. Not only was there no intention of standing up for her, but he also seized this opportunity to bring up the matter of entering the palace. Your Majesty, I wish to leave the palace. Zihua mustered her courage to reply, paying no mind to his chilled expression. Life outside the palace offers more freedom. I know my standing in this palace isn't significant, so I might as well seek a freer path. Rather than saying their relationship was that of superior and subordinate, it was more apt to call them confidants. Thus, she spoke without much reservation. I understand what you mean. Then I can only wish you achieve your heart's desire. He lowered his gaze, focusing intently on the painting in his hands. Zihua knew this topic would never be brought up again. Even if she took the initiative to request entering the palace, he likely wouldn't agree immediately. But so what? Entering the palace was never his true purpose. Gaining a firm foothold was her ultimate goal. An emperor's guilt is never worth anything. They can take it back at any time. The palace maids, twisting their handkerchiefs in the courtyard, had resentful looks in their eyes. They glanced at each other, looking at one another, their eyes filled with dissatisfaction. Clearly, they were all palace maids working together. How come Zihua gained favor? Ming Fu stood under the eaves, watching them whispering among themselves. He couldn't help but cough twice. What are you all gathered here for? Have you finished all your tasks? If you're idle, I wouldn't mind assigning you more work. The palace maids were startled and quickly scattered. As the sky grew dark, Zihua just took her meal and returned to her room. The senior palace maid's food consisted of 2 dishes and a soup. It included not only meat and vegetables, but also a bowl of fish soup. After a few sips of the fish soup, she felt her entire stomach warm up. Looking down at the fish in her bowl, she suddenly remembered a question. System: when do early pregnancy symptoms appear during pregnancy? That's not certain. Everyone's constitution is different. Some people have severe symptoms, while others have none at all. Zihua stroked her still flat stomach and asked something she had been curious about for a long time. Do you have an ultrasound function? In this ancient era, I can't even get a checkup. I am scared. Host, you're being a bit too much. I'm just a system. Isn't that asking too much? In the blink of an eye, the 15th has arrived again. According to the rules, the emperor must go to the empress's palace on this day no matter what. Chu Jin pinched the bridge of his nose. He sat on the dragon throne with a headache. Every time he goes, it ends unpleasantly. He knows he also bears some responsibility in this matter. But it's been so long, she should let it go by now. As an emperor, being ignored for so many years, he has really been very humble. Moreover, in all these years since, he hasn't visited the noble consort's palace either. When Zihua entered with tea, she saw his face, full of inner conflict. Before she could ask anything, she heard the other party speak first. Accompany me to the Empress's palace. I was just thinking about how to get close to the Empress. And now this opportunity comes. Fengwu Palace is second only to the Hall of Mental Cultivation. As the Empress's residence, it naturally cannot be less grand than other palaces. Resplendent and magnificent, with carved beams and painted rafters, red bricks and green tiles, perfectly reflecting the Empress's status. Although the palace gate was wide open, looking in from the outside, it appeared cold and deserted inside, quiet and still. The palace staff attended to their respective duties. The emperor has arrived, a eunuch announced calmly as usual. As soon as the words fell, the maids still working, and the eunuchs immediately knelt down. Greetings to your majesty regarding the emperor's arrival. They were not only very calm, but even showed some worry, because every time the emperor came, the empress would lose control of her emotions. Zihua followed behind Chu Jin, with a trace of confusion on her face. The palace was filled with the strong scent of sandalwood. If she didn't know this was Fengwu Palace, she might have thought she had come to a temple. This matter had been discussed in the palace. The empress had begun practicing vegetarianism and chanting Buddhist scriptures at some point, seemingly to pray for her unborn child. Footsteps sounded. The empress arrived late, supported as she came. Her face showed no joy, nor any other emotion. See the emperor. Your majesty, May you have boundless fortune and peace. Her clothing is very plain. She is holding a string of Buddhist beads in her hand. It seems she has been fingering them for a long time. In her youth, she was a talented and devoted woman of great intelligence. After marriage, she also enjoyed a period of glory. Due to her husband's affection, she was once the woman everyone admired. But now, she seems to have faded. She can never regain the feeling she once had. Empress, how have you been lately? Chu Jin stepped forward, took her hand and led her inside. The Empress calmly withdrew her hand, then walked gracefully behind him. It seemed she was merely playing this role, with no other emotions mixed in. Thanks to your Majesty's blessings, I am doing well. After the two were seated, the air suddenly grew still. It was so quiet it was unbearably awkward. Zihua stood behind the two, looking at the Empress's expressionless face. She sighed inwardly. If she hadn't been hurt so deeply, what woman would act like this? But she didn't expect. While she was secretly observing the Empress had also noticed her. This palace maid looks unfamiliar. Is she the Emperor's new favorite? It's rare for the Empress to inquire about his affairs. Chu Jin was so shocked his jaw dropped. He followed her gaze. Zihua was standing there with a bewildered expression, replying to Your Majesty the Empress. This servant is the newly promoted senior palace maid, wishing Her Majesty the Empress good health and peace. She performed a bow with proper etiquette, leaving no room for any criticism. I have heard of you. Just 5 short words, yet they sparked endless speculation. What exactly has she heard? Zihua felt a bit nervous. She hoped she hadn't offended the Empress. She still wanted to be on the same side as her. This maid seems quite interesting. Why not come and serve in my palace? The Empress remained expressionless, but her words came as a slight surprise. Unexpectedly, the Emperor also chimed in. If the Empress likes her, then let her serve in your palace. Zihua's feelings were complicated at that moment. So, that wretched man had just asked her if she wanted to be a consort. And the next moment, he cast her aside. Indeed, an emperor's favor is the cheapest thing. But if it allows her to get closer to the Empress, it might not be such a bad thing. Soon, evening arrived. Palace attendants brought in food. The table was filled with exquisite delicacies. Just the sight of it whetted one's appetite. Yet the two of them ate separately. There was almost no conversation between them. Your Majesty, we respectfully see you off. The Empress bid him farewell without hesitation. Her tone sounded as if she had breathed a sigh of relief. She seemed much more relaxed, to the point where it was almost heart-straining to hear. What did he want to say? But he couldn't get it out. In the end, he still left. Zihua watched his retreating figure. She couldn't help but curse a few times in her heart. Men really are unreliable. But the most pressing matter at the moment was how her plan should proceed. She couldn't be the one to reveal this child's existence. It had to come from someone else's mouth. But as for exactly how to do it, she needed to think it over carefully. The Empress had not yet retired. She was currently sitting in the courtyard, admiring the sunset that had not yet faded. Your Majesty, this humble maid has been assigned to serve you. She performed a salute and stood there awaiting instructions. The Empress lifted her eyes and glanced around. Most of the people present had withdrawn. The Emperor is truly so heartless. He actually went ahead and assigned you here. He doesn't feel the slightest bit of distress. I am but a lowly palace maid. To gain your Majesty's recognition is this maid's fortune. The Emperor only said that I should serve you diligently. She stood there, letting the others scrutinize her. If her mental fortitude were any weaker, she'd probably be sweating by now. You were quite eloquent back then. The Empress reached out and picked up the teacup beside her. She let out a scornful laugh. The virtuous consort has already mentioned it to me. The relationship between you and the Emperor. It's not exactly ordinary, is it? Hearing this, Zihua's heart skipped a beat in alarm. She hurriedly knelt down, That was merely the emperor showing compassion for this maid. This humble servant wouldn't dare to have any other thoughts. I beg your highness to see this clearly. This is the unfortunate aspect of being in the palace. Those without power have no rights. But what can be done about it? One can only blame the circumstances the system assigned to her. They were truly too poor. For some reason, she felt the Empress knew everything, yet seemed not to care. There's no need to be nervous. This palace is just casually chatting with you. The Empress put down the teacup in her hand. Then she pointed to a spot beside her. Sit. Since you are someone he holds in his heart, this palace naturally won't make things difficult for you. Yes. She was as stiff as a block of wood. Her hands were clasped tightly together under her robes. Her toes curled inside her shoes. The Empress was truly worthy of being the Empress. After several exchanges, she still couldn't fathom what the other party actually wanted. This palace has said, "You need not be nervous. It's just that the way you looked at this palace earlier reminded me of an old acquaintance." Who? She blurted out almost immediately, but then she immediately covered her mouth. That was rather presumptuous. The Empress, however, didn't seem to mind. She just gazed into the distance calmly. This palace's biological younger sister. The Empress had a full-blooded younger sister, but it said she died due to a difficult childbirth. The child wasn't born alive either. It was stuck for too long in the womb. When finally delivered, it was all blue and purple. He married a successor wife in the second year after she passed away. That poor woman. In the end, nothing was left. Zhehua's appearance does not resemble the Empress's. Naturally, she doesn't look like her own younger sister either. But the similarity lies in those eyes. Back then, when she looked at me, it was just like how you're looking at me today. The Empress's tone carried a hint of nostalgia. Those days were truly carefree. If she were still alive, she would probably be about your age now. She lifted her head, gazing at the sky. Tears glistened in the corners of her eyes. As the eldest daughter of the family, from the moment she was born, she was groomed to become a proper empress. No one truly cared about her joys and sorrows. Only her younger sister was the one who truly cared for her. When she was punished, her sister would ask if she was in pain. That child who only exists in memories now. I wonder if she has been reborn into a new life. Closing her eyes, scenes from childhood seemed to remain vivid. But when she opened them again, everything had become reality. I don't need you to attend to me here. But if you prefer to stay, then stay. Afterward, the head palace maid arranged a new room for him. The Empress appears aloof, but is actually quite detached. She can see through others' little schemes, yet remains above the fray. That's why she has securely held her position as Empress for so many years. Several days passed like this. The calm Zihua adapted to her new life. Unexpectedly, young palace maid came to find her this day, saying that someone outside was looking for her. Zihua was puzzled. In this Fengwu palace, no one should dare to make things difficult for her. Even the virtuous consort from that day, out of respect for the emperor, only dared to verbally trouble her a little. But after stepping out of Fengwu palace, she froze again, because the person looking for her was actually the emperor. You've spent a day in Fengwu palace. Are you accustomed to it? Zihua snapped back to reality, hurriedly performing a salute. Your Majesty, good fortune. Dispense with the formalities. Come before me. Tell me, how has the Empress been lately? He placed one hand on his knee, while the other picked up a teacup. First, he took a sip, then set it down. Her Majesty the Empress is not seriously ill. She just looks somewhat haggard. The weather has been changeable recently. Perhaps she has caught a chill. However, the imperial physicians regularly check her pulse for safety, so it should be nothing major. Aside from that, have you noticed anything else? Upon hearing this, a thought arose in Zihua's mind. Did the emperor give her to the empress merely because of a casual remark from the empress? Even if the empress hadn't mentioned it, the emperor would likely have found a way to place her in Fengwu Palace. The reason wasn't hard to guess. It was simply to make her a spy. Though she knew the imperial family was heartless, but she still found it a bit hard to accept. Your Majesty, I've only been here for a few days. Even if there were something going on, it wouldn't be possible to discover it so soon, right? I know, Chu Jin sighed. Then he voiced his thoughts. The mastermind behind the poisoning was likely the Empress's former personal maid. What he suspected was obvious. Zi Hua's expression turned complicated. She suddenly felt a bit disgusted. After so many years of marriage, was there really not even this little bit of trust? Besides, the Empress can't stand the sight of him. Why would she bother poisoning him? I've really had enough. I know that too. But I'm afraid someone might use the Empress's hand. Zi Hua. It's lonely at the top. The more she listened, the more she felt like laughing. To put it bluntly, it's still a lack of trust. For a married couple to come to this point. It's truly pitiful. And what's even more pitiful is her. She thought he had given up on her. But it turned out he sent her here to be a spy. Wasn't he afraid she might get caught one day and punished by the Empress? The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She couldn't help but retort to the Emperor. It hasn't been easy for a young couple to come this far. What kind of person Her Majesty the Empress is? Better than anyone. After speaking, she quickly called out to the system. Zhaoba, what if I die in this world? She was practically on the verge of lecturing the Emperor directly. If he were to get angry, he might have her dragged out and beaten to death. Isn't that just awful? Why is that? If the host dies in the mission world, then you can only start over until you complete the mission. To put it simply, if she fails to complete the mission, she will be stuck in this world forever. Since that's the case, she felt relieved for the time being. At worst, she could just start over from the beginning. Unexpectedly, the Emperor was not angry. Forget it. You may go back for now. I will find a way to bring you back another day. He lowered his gaze, looking somewhat sad. Zi Hua felt no inner turmoil. She merely put on a concerned expression. Your Majesty, the weather changes in autumn. Please take care of your health. After saying this, she bowed and left. Putting on an act. Who doesn't know how to do that? And the first thing she did after returning was to seek out the Empress. She told her about the Emperor summoning her earlier. Some matters shouldn't be kept in the dark, especially since she had confirmed with Zhaoba that there was a chance to restart. So she wanted to do as she pleased. The Empress stared at her in stunned silence. Aren't you afraid that if I'm displeased, I might have you dragged out and beaten to death? This humble servant simply believes that your highness is a good person and should not be treated with such suspicion. Even an outsider who has known you for only a few days trusts you so much. And that husband who spent every day together and loved for many years was unwilling to give even the slightest bit of trust. The Empress suddenly felt like laughing, but she couldn't bring herself to laugh. Then she looked again at the somewhat nervous Zi Hua beside her. Miss Zi Hua, thank you for telling me all this. Otherwise, I would never have known. Given Chu Jin's nature, if he wants to hide something, if he doesn't want others to know, then he can keep it hidden forever, completely airtight. But as for you, in your current situation, has he really not even been willing to grant you a proper title? The Empress suddenly thought of another matter. The Emperor was drugged, and afterwards, he suddenly started paying great attention to a palace maid. So what exactly happened in between is perfectly clear with just a little thought. Zi Hua reached up and scratched the back of her head. With a somewhat simple and honest air, this servant only feels that the rear palace is not this servant's destined home. His Majesty has also promised this servant that when the time comes, he will allow this servant to leave the palace. I'm afraid it's not that simple. The Empress let out a cold laugh, finding her naivety utterly ridiculous. A woman who belongs to the Emperor, could she possibly be allowed to drift about outside? I'm afraid that right after leaving the palace, some accident would befall her. Especially since she knows so many things. Hearing this cold laugh, Zihua suddenly realized something. It seems she was still too naive, but still, it was all right. She didn't really want to leave the palace either. All of this was just a ploy of playing hard to get. Don't you worry, since you're staying here with me, I will protect you. Silly girl. Remember this. Men's words cannot be trusted. When she left, Zihua only felt a sense of relief. Indeed, she just wasn't the type to hide things. And it was also because the emperor was too arrogant, really thinking she would keep her mouth shut. Life in Fengwu Palace was carefree. No need to wake up early to help with dressing, nor do any chores, just needed to make her presence known in front of the Empress. A very easy life. And after some time had passed, Zihua also started feeling morning sickness. But she always ate in her own room, so no one noticed. She was thinking about when to reveal her pregnancy, but she couldn't very well say it directly herself. Just as she was worrying about it, suddenly an opportunity came knocking. It was like receiving a pillow when you're sleepy. The virtuous consort has arrived. Everyone knelt at the entrance to welcome her. The virtuous consort glanced at Linger beside her, giving her a meaningful look. Linger understood, pulled a hairpin from her sleeve, and as if by accident, when she walked near Zihua, the hairpin suddenly slipped, falling right beside her. Miss Zihua, please pick it up for me. She didn't even bother to find an excuse. She just waited for the other party to pick it up. Looking at the hairpin fallen on the ground, Zihua understood the other's intention. But she was waiting for this very opportunity. So she crouched down, picked up the hairpin from the ground, and then reached out to hand it over. Sure enough, the next second, Linger pretended to accidentally drop it, and the hairpin fell to the ground, breaking into two pieces. Miss Zihua, do you have some grievance against Our Lady? Why did you shatter her ladyship's favorite hairpin? This blatant scheme was obvious to anyone with eyes, but they were merely servants. Even if they understood, they couldn't say anything. In such situations, there's basically no way to prove innocence. If you don't pick it up, that's disrespect to the imperial consort. If you do pick it up, this is what happens. Even though she knew it was a trap, she still had no choice but to walk into it. Zihua understood this well. But on the surface, she put on a frightened expression. She knelt down with a thud. This servant didn't do it on purpose. I beg for your ladyship's punishment. At the same time, she silently called out Jiaoba in her heart. Remember to help me make a bigger scene later. You have such nerve. Do you know this hairpin was brought by this consort's family? This consort wears it almost every day. And you actually broke it. Do you admit your guilt? She looked quite angry. But upon closer inspection, a hint of schadenfreude could be seen in the depths of her eyes. She's just a maid, and she still wants to throw her weight around above her. If she isn't taught a lesson, she'll really think this harem follows her surname. Your Highness, this servant clearly had it held out properly. It was Linger who didn't hold it steady. This servant doesn't know how it fell. Since virtuous consort wants to pick a fight, she'll play along with the act. Sure enough, she heard her rebuttal. Virtuous consort was so angry, steam practically came from her nostrils. Fine, fine, fine. A mere little palace maid does wrong and still stubbornly refuses to admit it. Then, as punishment, you will kneel here until you come to your senses. Zihua cried out that she was wrong, but the corners of her mouth slowly turned upwards. The main show was officially beginning. Zihua's face was full of humiliation, yet she had no choice but to accept it all. Forced to accept this grace, Thank you, virtuous consort. Under the scorching sun, the girl, wearing maid's robes, knelt on the ground. Soon, fine, dense beads of sweat appeared on her temples. Her lips turned pale, and her body began to tremble. It had only been a few minutes, yet she looked as if she had been kneeling for hours. Virtuous consort couldn't help but find it strange. Is this woman's physical condition really this poor? Virtuous consort, such great authority you wield. You even dare to discipline people right under my nose. At this moment, the Empress emerged from within. She felt somewhat frustrated by her lack of progress. Was this foolish girl trying to infuriate her to death? She didn't even know to seek her out after being bullied. If it weren't for the palace maid reporting earlier, she wouldn't have known how badly she had been mistreated. Noble consort Sheen's mouth was the hardest part of her body right now. She just wanted to use these petty tricks. Everyone knew it in their hearts, but there was no other way. This is the inner palace. If you have no power or influence, you can only endure it. But the Empress is no pushover either. She could firmly hold her position because she had the capability. Otherwise, given her aloofness towards the Emperor over the years, she would have long been stripped of her title and seals. Even if there is a lesson to be taught, it should be delivered by me personally. By overstepping your boundaries like this, you are showing me no respect. Noble consort Sean pressed her lips together, not daring to say anything more. Too much talk leads to mistakes. It was better to just remain silent like this. She glanced down at the teetering figure and couldn't help but frown. How much time had passed? And already she couldn't handle it? At the same time, Zihua was also utterly convinced by Zhao Bai's shameless maneuver. I told you to make a bigger scene for me, but no one asked you to take it to the extreme. Just as she felt dizzy and muddled, "Host, don't worry. Just close your eyes and it'll be over." Then, a thud was heard. The person kneeling on the ground suddenly fainted. The air was still thick with the smell of blood. Zihua's face was deathly pale, lying on the ground like a broken doll. If not for the rising and falling of her chest, she looked as if she had kicked the bucket. While everyone was frozen in shock, a palace maid suddenly screamed, "Your Highness, Zihua is bleeding." The Empress hurriedly summoned the servants over. "Help her up. Hurry. Help her up and put her on the bed. And also, call the imperial physician. Call the imperial physician." Then she turned to look at noble consort Sean, her eyes carrying a hint of coldness. This consort was unaware that noble consort Sean had the habit of conducting private punishments. This truly brings disgrace to the title noble consort Sean. They say if you want to beat a dog, you should first consider its owner. To so openly bully her maid, isn't this just a slap to her face? Noble consort Sean felt utterly speechless. She only made her kneel for a few minutes, yet her trouser legs were even stained with blood from kneeling. This is even more delicate than us, the consorts. Thinking back to when she was bullied by the Empress Dowager, the time she knelt was much longer than this. Soon, Imperial Physician Zhang entered with his medicine chest. He placed a cloth over her wrist. Then he began taking her pulse. But shortly after he started, he couldn't help but frown. Imperial Physician Zhang, how is the situation? Imperial Physician Zhang was a doctor she trusted relatively well. In recent years, the conditioning of her body had also been handled by him. Your Highness, this palace maid is named Zihua. Physician Zhang appears to have difficulty speaking. What's wrong with her? Just say what you have to say. Virtuous consort is growing impatient. Physician Zhang lets out a turbid breath. He grits his teeth as if steeling his resolve. She shows signs of a miscarriage. But it's no longer a concern now. Just prescribe some miscarriage-preventing medicine. Physician Zhang is utterly stunned. A palace maid is pregnant. What does this mean? In this palace, there are only palace maids and eunuchs. Where could she have had relations to become pregnant? Could it be that she had an affair with some imperial guard? This is equivalent to the crime of disrupting the harem. But Her Majesty, the Empress, looks quite worried. He doesn't dare to prescribe medicine casually. So he stands there, waiting for an answer. If it were a month ago, the Empress would probably have known whose child this is. This girl, Zi Hua, was previously in the Hall of Mental Cultivation, and later she was here with her. It's impossible for her to have been involved with anyone else. Then the only possibility is the Emperor, who was drugged a month ago. Not only did she think of this, Virtuous Consort also thought of it. Abort the fetus. Get me the medicine to abort her fetus. Virtuous Consort's eyes are red with urgency. She seems to have gone mad. A lowly palace maid dares to mess around like this in the harem. How utterly audacious. Physician Zhang, bring me the abortion potion. She is simply about to explode with anger. With so many concubines in the harem, not a single one has become pregnant in all these years. A mere Zhaoba. How is she worthy of bearing the Emperor's child? Only after the Empress regained her composure did she swiftly and decisively handle the subsequent matters. This pregnancy must be preserved. This is the Emperor's first royal son in the 10 years since his ascension to the throne. She cannot bear the charge of harming the imperial heir. Empress, you are so at ease letting her rest and nurture the pregnancy in your palace? Since when did I not know you were so magnanimous? Virtuous Consort let out a cold laugh. The latter remark was clearly directed at her. If not for fear of someone tampering with the medicine, seeing Virtuous Consort so unable to remain calm, the Empress also could not help but sneer. You and I both know full well how this child came to be. Of course, I must be magnanimous. Otherwise, I would become as narrow-minded as the rest of you. And that would be truly terrible. Of course, I must still thank you. Otherwise, today's matter might have remained unknown to all. Only 1 month pregnant, and already it can be detected to such an extent. I suspect Zi Hua herself is unaware of her pregnancy. The Empress, however, had no strong feelings about it. She had long since given up any thoughts about the Emperor. It's just that this palace maid, whose temperament so resembles her younger sister's, is someone she wishes to protect. Now that she is also with child, it feels like a repetition, reminding her of the child she herself lost. To inform them, send someone to inform the Empress Dowager as well. Empress, have you lost your mind? If this matter is truly exposed, what good would it bring you? Consort Shan stared at the Empress in utter disbelief. This woman is pregnant, and she's the only expectant mother in the entire rear palace. What if she intends to use this child to achieve some scheme? A mother gaining status through her son. Such things have happened in every dynasty. I advise you to watch your words. The Empress cast her a light, dismissive glance. I truly don't understand. We're both daughters of loyal noble families. How have you now become like a shrew? She was well aware that a woman carrying the Emperor's child posed a threat to her. But only a fool would fear such a thing. They all have the backing of their maternal families. How could some powerless palace maid ever outmaneuver them? This Consort Shan has truly lost all sense of reason. The Emperor and Empress Dowager were in the midst of receiving Duke Kang's counsel. When they heard the palace maid's report, the Empress Dowager nearly choked on her tea, staring incredulously at the maid who delivered the news. That troublemaker from the rear palace. How dare she secretly marry a man? And now, she's even with child? The Emperor cleared his throat gently at the side. Mother Empress, if your son guesses correctly, that child should be mine. Zi Hua woke up from a nap feeling refreshed and clear-headed, and was about to rise soon. I could hear the chaotic noise outside. Host, I created a near-miss shovel phenomenon for you. You need to keep your composure. Don't blow our cover, Zhaoba reminded uneasily. She closed her eyes and responded perfunctorily, then carefully listened to the commotion outside. In the outer chamber, noble consort Shan was kneeling on the ground, her face deathly pale. Sitting in the seats of honor were not the Empress, but the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. After learning the child was the Emperor's, the mother and son rushed urgently to Fengwu Palace. This was the first child in 10 years. If a miscarriage really occurred, there would be nowhere even to cry. Upon arriving, they inquired about the situation, wanting to know how Zihua had miscarried. How could this happen when everything was fine? Did the Empress mistreat her? Or did she herself not take care? After hearing the palace maid's explanation, the Empress Dowager was furious. As the champion of the previous harem struggles, how could she not understand the hidden schemes here? Your Majesty, I truly did not do it intentionally. I did not know this palace maid was with child. If I had known, I would never have acted this way. My intention was only to teach her some manners. I absolutely had no intention of harming the imperial heir. Empress Dowager, Your Majesty, I am wronged. Noble consort Shan, you certainly have quite the audacity. The palace maid bestowed upon the Empress by His Majesty. Where did you get the audacity to lecture me? When it comes to lecturing, only the Empress has the qualification. You overstepping your authority like this. Could it be that you want to replace the Empress and take her position? The Empress Dowager stared at her with a livid face, just thinking about how, after 10 years, the one child she finally hoped for was almost lost. Even now, she still feels a bit panicked. Noble consort Shan was still crying and complaining, shifting all the blame onto her personal maid, Linger. It was all that servant acting on her own initiative. Your subject was also kept completely in the dark. As things have reached this point, she showed not the slightest sign of remorse. Noble consort Shan. She isn't the least bit worthy of the name Shan virtuous. Chu Jin also couldn't be bothered to listen to her excuses anymore. He still wanted to know about Zihua's condition. Announce my decree. Noble consort Shan overstepped her authority, challenged her superiors, and is suspected of attempting to harm the imperial heir. However, in consideration that she claims to have been unaware, she shall be confined to the cold palace. Not taking her life was already him showing leniency in the punishment. Unexpectedly, the Empress then coolly added, when noble consort Shan learned that Zihua was pregnant, she once tried to have physician Zhang prepare a dose of abortifacient tea. As soon as these words were spoken, noble consort Shan knew she was completely finished. Sure enough, the next second, the emperor kicked her to the ground. Hurry up and drag this madwoman out of my sight. The eunuch at the side, having received the order, immediately dragged her away. Noble consort Shan had already fallen from grace, and there was no longer any hope for her to regain favor. So they couldn't be bothered to show the same respect as before. Then someone shouted again, Your Majesty, Your Highness, Miss Zihua has woken up. Shortly after, 3 people hurried inside. Their expressions varied. This servant pays respects to. Zihua struggled to get up and pay her respects to the 3. Her face looked somewhat flustered. She seemed unaware of what had happened. Enough. You are with child now. Let's skip these formalities. The Empress Dowager pressed her down firmly, making her stay obediently in bed. Then she spoke with deep concern. Your task now is simply to give me a healthy imperial grandson. You needn't worry about anything else. The emperor also nodded in agreement. If you need anything, just order the palace servants. You must not endure any hardship yourself, nor let the child suffer. The empress only said one thing. How are you feeling now? Are you still unwell? Imperial physician Zhang hasn't left yet. Let him examine you again. This servant. What happened? What child? What is this? Zihua was becoming incoherent. She looked at them in confusion, utterly bewildered. Although the Empress's words made her feel warm inside, it was better to maintain her character given the current situation. She believed the Empress wouldn't find her behavior inappropriate. The Empress Dowager cheerfully took her hand. She looked her up and down. I can see at a glance that you are a good girl. You are blessed. You are already 1 month pregnant. Who the child belongs to certainly doesn't need me to say. Child. I have a child? Zihua's eyes widened. Her hand floated unconsciously to her abdomen. Yes. Zihua. I knew you were a good girl. Bear a healthy royal son for me. What do you want? I will grant you anything. Chu Jin moved closer. The joy on his face was unmistakable. If at this moment she were to say she wanted to leave the palace, these people would definitely lock her up. Better not test their limits. This servant doesn't want anything. She shook her head. Her face still slightly pale, making her look pure and innocent. And why call yourself this servant? Since you are the emperor's woman, then you must have a rank. Emperor. Don't you agree? The Empress Dowager shot the emperor a look. This vexing fellow is right. Right. You must have a rank. Since you are the mother of my child, how can you remain a lowly palace maid? What rank would you like? Tell me. The corner of Zihua's eye twitched slightly. Are the Empress Dowager and the Emperor a little bit not right in the head? Or perhaps it was because she was too excited. That's why she was like this. The Empress seemed to notice her embarrassment. She took a step forward and straightened the blanket for her. Seizing the chance to diffuse the situation, she said, since it's about conferring a consort title, it cannot be decided so casually. It would be better to first appoint her as a beauty. Once this matter is announced to the world, her rank can be promoted. This way, the royal family's regard for her will be emphasized. She won't fade into obscurity after giving birth. Zihua also understood her good intentions, so she gave her a grateful look. The Empress comfortingly patted her head. Then she looked towards the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. Let her stay peacefully with me. I will have someone tidy up the side hall shortly. The main point is, she's the only one in the entire harem who is pregnant. Think of how many eyes are watching her. If any mishap should occur, that would truly be terrible. I think it wouldn't be unacceptable for her to stay at the Hall of Mental Cultivation either. Chu Jin gave the Empress a meaningful look. This is the only royal heir in the 10 years of the new dynasty. The royal line will have a successor. Only then can the kingdom be stable enough. Those ministers will also stop their clamoring. The Empress Dowager was silent for a moment. Then she made the decision. She shall stay at Fengwu Palace. Empress. I'll have to trouble you during this time. This is my only royal grandchild. You must not let anything happen to it. After the child is born, then I shall leave the child in your care. Zihua's status is not high. She has no right to raise the child. You are on good terms with her. I trust you will treat the child well. The Empress's indifferent eyes showed a trace of mockery. She had thought the Emperor shared some affection with Zihua. Never expected it to be so shallow. The child hasn't even been born yet. And you're already planning to separate mother and child. Your Majesty, has your heart always been this cruel? After all these years, she had long grown accustomed to his hypocrisy. So this time, she showed him no mercy. Empress, I am only doing this to make it up to you. Chu Jin's face turned ashen. How could he not understand the pain of separating mother and child? But the Empress has borne no children for years. The court would be in turmoil. He is doing this to protect her. If it means sacrificing another woman's happiness to save me, then I'm afraid I cannot obey. She only wants her own child. Very well, that is impossible. He suppressed his temper, trying to remain pleasant. Zihua is a fortunate girl. If she can conceive this time, she can surely conceive again. But you are different. You need a child. My child also needs a powerful backing. Do you understand? He is selfish. This matter will indeed hurt Zihua. But this selfishness is necessary. Because what he values is the nation, and its altars of soil and grain. The future Chu army. How could the royal consort possibly be a palace maid? If, when the time comes to ascend the throne, what will those ministers start clamoring about? Actually, she is also making use of the Empress's status, just to secure a good future for this child. Even if he only has this one child in the future, being able to walk a smooth path is far better than a difficult and dangerous road. The Empress is an intelligent person. She understands immediately when hinted. So at this moment, her expression softened slightly. That was her first child. She cannot, just because she herself has no children, let others lose their children too. For others, that would be too painful. Empress, I am not the kind of person who is cold and ungrateful. When the time comes, I will naturally compensate Zihua. But as for my child, I will give him the very best of everything. Although he holds some affection for Zihua and is somewhat fond of her, this bit of fondness ultimately cannot outweigh the design of the state. He can try every means to raise her status, even to that of imperial noble consort. But the child must be legitimate. Only if this child is born from the Empress can the future succession to the throne be rightful and proper. This is perhaps the first time in all these years that the two have discussed something so calmly. Some matters are clearly understood by everyone, but it cannot be spoken of openly. The Empress is the Empress. Even though she has borne no children for many years, she remains the most noble woman in this country. But Zihua can never become the Empress. Her status as a palace maid is his greatest stain. Having been in the rear palace for many years, how could the Empress not understand these things? Her heart is still very conflicted. To make her do such a cruel thing to someone like her own sister, she truly cannot bear it in her conscience. Empress, I know about what happened before, and I was in the wrong regarding you. But the noble consort has been confined in the palace with you for many years, and you also ruined her appearance. I have never punished you for any of it. So many years have passed. You should let go of the past grievances. After speaking, Chujin tentatively reached out and pulled the other person, drawing her into his embrace. The Empress seemed as if she had lost her soul, standing there letting herself be moved. After so many years, can these grievances truly be let go? They were a young couple who had walked through their years together. The only barrier between them was that unborn child. With so many years of emotional foundation, how could it be let go all at once? Tears fell unknowingly, as if all the grievances hidden for so long came falling down together. Eunuch Mingfu, holding his horsetail whisk in hand, smiled with some relief. The relationship between the Emperor and the Empress easing is truly a great blessing for the Great Qi. Zihua doesn't know about this yet. Someone is plotting against the child in her womb. After drinking that miscarriage-preventing medicine, her mouth was filled with a bitter taste. She asked the servant to bring warm water to rinse her mouth, and only then did she feel much better. After the pregnancy was revealed, she felt a lot more relaxed, no matter what happened before. Now, she is the only woman in the entire harem who is pregnant, so she is bound to receive special care. Of course, there is an emotion she deliberately ignored, which now rises uncontrollably. That is, a sense of gloom. It's not due to the effects of pregnancy, but rather the unspoken words of the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. What the Empress Dowager wanted to say, she actually understood quite well. If the child is born a dragon son, in all likelihood, the child will be registered under the Empress's name. When that time comes, she will only be the birth mother, not the mother. It is better for the child, and for the stability of the entire empire. The only one it is not good for is her. Sometimes, having a clear mind is quite painful. She gently stroked her belly, thinking to herself, she must live well and watch her child grow up properly. The Empress is an exception. But everyone else in the palace absolutely must not. The next day, when the imperial physician came to check her pulse, he informed her of the usual precautions, and also told her that her condition was quite good. There were no lasting effects, she could move around more, and did not need to stay in bed all the time. This lifestyle was simply too comfortable. Of course, except for dealing with that scoundrel, the emperor. When Chu Jin arrived, Zihua had just finished dressing, and was planning to go have breakfast with the empress. I pay my respects to your majesty. Skip the formalities. You are with child now. Such courtesies are unnecessary. Chu Jin quickly stepped forward, helping her to her feet. Looking at her thin and frail figure, he couldn't help but mutter a few words. Too thin. Have you not been eating properly? Is this all you eat in the morning? On the table were plain congee and simple dishes, which looked quite unappetizing. Has the imperial kitchen been neglecting you? Seeing that she did not speak, Chu Jin's face darkened. He sounds a bit angry. What have those people in the imperial kitchen been doing? No, that's not it. Zihua was afraid he would say something reckless. She quickly grabbed his hand and pulled his attention back. This was made for me by the small kitchen in Fengwu Palace. It tastes pretty good, although it doesn't look like there are many varieties. But the portions are quite generous. She couldn't possibly finish it all by herself. She was even thinking later she would let the maids serving her eat some too. She didn't expect the emperor to come over. She wasn't really surprised. She just wasn't quite sure what the situation was with the empress. Like this. Is it really okay? After having the child, she no longer cared much about the child's father. Chu Jin held her soft, delicate little hand. He led her to the dining table and sat down. The servant had brought the freshly prepared breakfast from the imperial kitchen and set it down. In comparison, the previous meal did seem rather meager. Here, try this. He brought over a bowl of smooth, tender steamed egg custard. The surface of the custard was even carved with a pattern. He drizzled a bit of sesame oil over it, making it even more fragrant. Zihua picked up a spoon to scoop some, but unexpectedly, a strong, eggy smell assaulted her nostrils. Her stomach churned violently. To avoid losing her composure in front of everyone, she immediately put down the spoon. She left the table quickly to find a place to vomit. What's going on? Chu Jin was completely stunned. This egg doesn't smell bad at all. It's not spoiled or rotten. Why such a strong reaction? Who made today's breakfast? His face darkened. He intended to get to the bottom of this. Your Majesty, this humble servant thinks Lady Zihua is experiencing morning sickness. Ming Fu was a thoughtful chief steward. I have asked the midwives. After women become pregnant, they often go through a period where they can't keep food down. It will pass after this time. He felt he had saved the imperial kitchen chef's neck. He really was a good chief steward. Hearing this, Chu Jin's anxious heart finally relaxed. Can't eat anything. How can her health be properly nourished? She is so frail. This will surely ruin her health. He still has some conscience. At least he didn't say anything about it being bad for the child. A pregnant woman should not prioritize the child. The woman should come first. Only when the mother is safe can the child's safety be guaranteed. Sometimes everyone focuses on the wrong thing. Zihua retched for a long time. She didn't vomit anything. She just rinsed her mouth. After feeling much better, she returned to her seat. That bowl of steamed egg custard had already been taken away. Those dishes on the table with strong smells had all been removed as well. No wonder the breakfast was so bland. So that's why. Before she could speak, Chu Jin spoke first. We have said before, if there is anything you wish to eat, just tell Ming Fu directly. Have him prepare it for you. Ming Fu also stepped forward. Just give your orders, mistress. As long as it concerns you, mistress. This servant always has time. How laughable it sounds. Just a while ago, he still referred to himself as we. Now, he's become this servant. Such is fate. Thank you, Your Majesty. I understand. Zihua lowered her eyelids. She seemed somewhat downcast. This expression indeed caught Chujin's attention. What's wrong? Has someone wronged you? She shook her head in a fluster, yet tears welled up in her eyes. Combined with this character's appearance, it made people unable to help but feel heartache seeing her. If you have something to say, just say it. I am here. I will stand up for you. He reached out his hand, gently wiping away the tears at the corner of her eyes. I just wanted to ask something. She seemed somewhat conflicted, biting her lower lip, unsure whether to speak or not. Then, does that mean I cannot leave the palace? As soon as these words were spoken, it was as if the whole world had fallen silent. All the servants dared not even breathe heavily. Chujin's expression also turned rather unpleasant. No matter how much he liked someone, he did not want to hear them always talking about leaving. Considering you are pregnant, I will not argue with you. But don't say such things again. Next time, I will get angry. He tried his best to speak in a gentle tone, striving not to frighten her. But his expression still remained quite unpleasant. Still thinking about leaving with his child? What a joke. But the next second, he saw the woman crying pitifully, her face covered with tears. Tears falling down uncontrollably. All right. You're already a mother-to-be. How can you still be so prone to crying? I promise you. After you give birth, I will accompany you back for a visit. This promise was even grander than the one she heard in her modern workplace. Zihua also knew when to stop while she was ahead. She didn't continue to be overly sentimental. After all, she didn't really want to go home. Both of them had their own schemes, but their interests did not conflict. Everyone could get what they wanted. There was nothing wrong with that. After Chujin finished his morning meal, he gave another instruction to the workers before leaving. Zihua saw him off with a smile. Then she turned and walked toward the main hall. The main hall is where the Empress lives. Only she is allowed to reside there. Fengwu Palace originally did not permit other consorts to live there either. For Zihua to be living here now, it could be considered a special honor. She could sense that the other party had accepted her. But this kind of relationship requires effort to maintain. Otherwise, in the later stages, it will inevitably fall apart. Her Highness has instructed that if you come, you may enter directly. The palace maid at the door saw her and immediately stepped forward to say and made way for her. The Empress had already finished her morning meal. At this moment, she was organizing the account books sent from various palaces. Shortly after sitting down, a palace maid brought over a clear, sweet fragrance of honey wafted to her nose. The palace maid smiled slightly. You are now with child. The imperial physician has advised that pregnancy can easily cause hunger. So the Empress has instructed that whenever you come, we are to prepare a snack for you. Zihua reached out and picked up a piece, put it into her mouth, and took a small bite. It was delicately sweet. It's very delicious. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty the Empress. I am only giving you extra preferential treatment. For the sake of the child, take this opportunity to eat more. It will also save you from suffering. The Empress glanced at her faintly, then lowered her head and continued managing palace affairs. She had been pregnant before and had also experienced morning sickness, so she naturally understood the difficulties of pregnancy. Zihua also knew she had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She cheerfully expressed her thanks. At the moment, the Empress was busy with official matters. Although Zihua wanted to say something, she found it difficult to speak up. She could only pass the time by reading storybooks nearby. The incense in the main hall had been changed to a lighter fragrance. If one didn't pay close attention, it was hardly noticeable. This incense was specially prepared by the imperial physician, said to help stabilize the pregnancy. It could be said that the entire focus of Fengwu Palace was now on the fetus in Zihu's womb. Not only the Empress, but even the Empress Dowager couldn't contain her excitement. Every day, it was either 1,000-year ginseng or gold and jewelry, delivered in batches, one after another, allowing her to spend as she pleased. The Empress Dowager is truly generous. Zihua couldn't help but sigh. These past few days, aside from the emperor, she had been the most diligent in sending gifts. Sending gifts means she values this child, and she values you, the pregnant woman, just as much. So give birth with confidence, with her around to watch over you. Hearing her words, the Empress couldn't help but let out a light laugh. You call these few things generous? You need to see more of the world in the future. It's just that I've rarely seen so many things before. When I've seen more in the future, I won't be like this anymore. Zihua playfully stuck out her tongue. She didn't feel embarrassed about acting this way at all. Given her status, if she had acted calm and composed, that would have been strange, wouldn't it? But for the Empress to tease the Empress Dowager right in front of her like that, shows a bit too much trust, doesn't it? But this is a good thing. She lifted her gaze to look over. For a fleeting moment, she saw strands of silver, hidden within the Empress's raven black hair. Those intricate hair ornaments obstructed the view, so she couldn't see very clearly. The Empress is only 28 years old now, yet her exquisite face already bore many fine lines. Even with meticulous care, it couldn't completely hide the faint traces of weariness. Time ages everyone, but it seems a bit too much aging catalyst was used here. 10 years ago, the Empress was also a maiden in the bloom of youth. An hour passed. The entire space was very quiet. Apart from the occasional sound of pages turning and the clinking of teacups, there were no other noises. The Empress looked up several times, wanting to say something to Zihua. But in the end, she swallowed her words. Some matters she didn't want to bring up at this moment. She had just been diagnosed with pregnancy. The joy hadn't even faded yet when she was struck by this thunderous news. How heartbreaking it must be. Yet if she didn't speak of it now, when would be the right time to bring it up? After the child is born? After she's grown attached to the child? It seemed no timing would feel right. In truth, the matter itself was wrong from the start. Having lived in the palace for so many years, her heart should have grown cold by now. But facing this woman who so resembled her own younger sister, she always wished to preserve some tenderness. Your Highness, if there's something you wish to say, just say it. I'm listening. Zihu, seeing her hesitate repeatedly, couldn't help but laugh. Though she appeared to be reading a storybook, she had actually noticed the Empress's behavior. The other's eyes were filled with conflict, her lips parting and closing several times. Zihua found it quite amusing, so she decided to speak up first. The Empress froze for a second, then shook her head as if nothing were wrong. It's nothing. You must have misread me. In the end, she still backed down. Is that so? But actually, I know what your Highness wants to say. She kept her head lowered, speaking as if to herself. The Emperor's and the Empress Dowager's intentions. I understand. Da Qi needs this child for the future. But my background is a major issue. The Crown Prince must be of legitimate birth, and I am not legitimate. Therefore, only Her Highness is the sole choice. After these words were spoken, the entire space fell into a dead silence. It was so quiet. You could almost hear a pin drop. Most women in the palace speak in roundabout ways. They would never be so blunt. It's rare to see someone as outspoken as her. She looks innocent, but in reality, she understands everything. Her eyes are incredibly clear, yet they give a sense of having experienced all the hardships of life. Stop your wild imaginings in my presence. Take good care of your pregnancy. Don't listen to those gossipy whispers. The Empress was somewhat flustered, but she regained her composure in an instant. Your Highness need not worry. This is something I thought of myself. We both know the truth of the matter. No children have been born in the harem, and the child in my womb is the only hope. Zihua closed the storybook. Her eyes held a determined expression, which made her whole person shine with a bit more radiance. She was just a lowly palace maid without power or influence. To gain the Empress's protection was her best option at present. To personally give away the son she carried for 10 months. For any mother, this would be a disaster. But in the face of the nation's interests, these personal matters of the heart can only be set aside for now. No one is willing to bring up those things at this critical moment. Even though the Empress had long decided to play the villain, when truly facing it, she still felt timid. Because her conscience was uneasy. Your Highness need not worry. It's not as if the child is severing ties with me. It's just that I will no longer be his mother, that's all. If your Highness pities me, then please do not block my connection with him. Just let me watch him grow up, and that will be enough. Zihua smiled gently. The expression on her fair face was frighteningly rational. And to be honest, she wasn't at a loss either. In the future, if this child inherits the throne, then wouldn't she have given birth to an emperor? This is simply beyond belief. After all, it was the Empress who was helping her raise the child, and even solving the problem of future employment along the way. If she were still petty about it, then she would be truly inhuman. The room was very quiet. The two of them looked at each other in silence. A gentle breeze blew outside the window. The trees planted in the courtyard rustled as their leaves were stirred by the wind. A few leaves fell. Autumn was quietly approaching. Do you not resent me? The Empress was somewhat stunned. She had already prepared herself, thinking that if there was resentment later, she would compensate the mother and child doubly. But now, the other party said it was voluntary, and didn't seem to mind at all. Was the child taken away? This carefree and graceful attitude. It's nothing like women in the harem. The Empress will treat my child well. Isn't that so? You will treat me well too. Isn't that so? To put it bluntly, the Empress cannot bear children. There was a child who had been registered under her name since childhood. Could he really be foolish enough to go and mistreat? This palace won't. The Empress answered subconsciously. Zihua smiled slightly, put down the storybook in hand, picked up the teacup from the side, took a small sip. Your Highness, just consider it as me finding a good home for the child. You should raise your own child yourself. What would this palace keep it for? Do you really think this palace has nothing better to do? Seemingly getting a bit agitated, she couldn't help but cough a few times, took out a handkerchief and wiped the corner of her mouth. After feeling a bit better, she began to usher the guest out. Zihua noticed something was wrong with her health, wanted to say something, but the other party had already closed her eyes. Appearing unwilling to speak, helpless, Zihua had no choice but to give up. Since Her Highness is tired, I shall take my leave first. Only when the sound of footsteps gradually faded away did the Empress open her eyes. Your Highness, please summon Imperial Physician Zhang for an examination. Your health can no longer be delayed. The senior palace maid Keihi poured a cup of tea and handed it over. Her tone tinged with concern. It was clear she knew the inside story. The Empress shook her head. Her cool eyes were filled with sorrow. This has nothing to do with illness. It's just that I myself cannot get over that hurdle. Even if Imperial Physician Zhang were to come, he would be powerless to help. I know my own body well. I still have to raise my child. How could I let anything happen to myself? Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Keihi pouted. Her lips twitched a few times, but in the end, she said nothing. The days of pregnancy were truly not easy. Ever since that bout of morning sickness, Zihua would occasionally feel nauseous. To cater to her appetite, the small kitchen prepared food in various creative ways, fearing she might have no appetite and harm her health from hunger. Chu Jin also frequently visited Fengwu Palace recently, but the Empress still refused to see him. So whenever he came, she would claim to be busy. Even on the 1st and 15th days of the lunar month, she remained in her main hall without stepping out. Thus, after arriving at Fengwu Palace, he also went to the side hall where Zihua was. Although there were not many servants attending, everything that was needed was available. It hadn't reached the point of being short-handed. "Why has your majesty come? Did you not go to the Empress's place?" At first, Zihua would still ask. But later she stopped asking. The Empress said she didn't care to pay attention to the Emperor. Even if he came every day, they would just sit in silence, rather than looking at each other with mutual dislike. It was better to maintain peace as they did now. Chu Jin held Zihua's shoulders, sitting on the reclining chair. His large hand rested on her lower abdomen, as if sensing the little life inside. From time to time, he lowered his head to kiss her hair. Sunlight streamed in through the window, casting streaks of light upon them. The two nestled together, looking very warm and intimate. It resembled a beautiful painting. In a while, after this matter is announced to the world, I will grant you a title. These past few days, I've thought of a few characters. Which one would you like to use? As he spoke, Chu Jin pulled out a piece of paper from his sleeve. Unfolding it, one could see the characters written inside. They were written in a bold, flowing style, each stroke sharp and powerful, looking unstoppable. Zihua studied it carefully for a while, then finally said, I haven't attended much school either. It would be better if your majesty helped me choose. She lifted her gaze, her bright, sparkling eyes looking at him. Her eyes brimmed with trust, as if in this world, he was the one she trusted most. He was her entire world. In an instant, Chu Jin felt an immense satisfaction. This delicate woman before him adored him with all her heart. How could he not be moved? If I were to choose, then I'd pick Li. My beloved consort is truly beautiful. You've utterly captivated me. This character, Li, suits you very well. Zihua pouted her little mouth, seeming somewhat displeased as she said, Your Majesty is so perfunctory. I thought there would be some profound meaning. Turns out, it's just because of my face. Her coquettish tone was like using a feather to gently tickle Chu Jin's heart, making it itch with fondness. My beloved consort's lovely face is truly beautiful. I am very pleased. However, your womb is also very productive, which pleases me even more. The two of them began to laugh and play. Under the setting sun, Fengwu watched this scene filled with pink bubbles, and recalled the news the palace maid had just delivered. For a moment, she didn't know what to do. Since you've all come to my palace, you must be here for tea. The Empress rested her fingers against her temple, leaning slightly against the chair back. Her cool, almond-shaped eyes narrowed, laziness tinged with a trace of impatience. Several palace consorts dressed in flamboyant attire. Their expressions are gentle and kind. You look at me. I look at you. Not knowing how to broach the subject. It has been a long time since I last visited Empress Sister. I miss you very much. So I thought I'd come by for a visit. The woman wearing the emerald headpiece. Her demeanor carries a hint of flattery, yet her peripheral gaze seems somewhat distracted. Unclear where she is actually looking. The woman in blue beside her lets out a sound of surprise. Her Majesty seems to have replaced quite a few servants recently. Where are Mingxin and Kaiju? Why haven't we seen those two? When the Empress first moved into Fengwu Palace, she brought along 3 personal maids. The 4 of them, mistress and servants, were inseparable, sticking together like glue. But now, the situation has changed. What exactly has happened in Fengwu Palace over these years? The Empress secretly rolled her eyes. The shifting expressions in their eyes were all noticed by her. No need to guess what they're thinking. They're just afraid she might have used some cruel punishment or schemed something. It's quite touching how concerned you all are about me, that you even remember so clearly. The maid's serving by my side. The Empress toyed with the prayer beads in her hand, a mocking smile curling at the corner of her lips. Her Majesty has been looking somewhat haggard lately, perhaps busy during the nights, thus appearing slightly weary. It actually makes us sisters quite envious. I really don't know what to say anymore. The woman in blue, that is, Hui Pin. Her handkerchief failed to cover her smile, yet a glint of gold shone in her eyes. Who says ancient people were reserved? What is the meaning behind these words? Actually, everyone knows. The implication was so obvious it almost ran over their faces. The sisters beside her almost blushed with embarrassment. However, none of them were naive young maidens anymore, so they only blushed for a moment. And it quickly passed. With Hui Pin breaking the ice, the other two somewhat shy consorts also dared to join the conversation. I heard His Majesty often visits you lately, sister. It has been a long time since I last saw him. I was hoping to run into him, but unfortunately, perhaps His Majesty had just left. That's why we didn't meet. The Empress glanced at her. She looked familiar, but she really couldn't recall who she was. With so many women in the harem, it was hard to keep track. However, her honest words made the Empress view her a bit differently. As long as they didn't beat around the bush, it was fine. She really didn't want to think too hard right now. But His Majesty is currently in the side hall. He hasn't left yet. If they waited a little longer with patience, they might actually run into him. And as for Zi Hua, there's no need to be overly protective. Getting to know them early could help her prepare in advance. After all, this is Fengwu Palace. No matter what, she can always protect others. Even if she can't protect them, the Emperor is still here. Over in the side hall, Chu Jin and Zi Hua had just eaten their fill. They were contentedly preparing to go out. I still have official duties to attend to. You just focus on resting during your pregnancy. After your pregnancy stabilizes, I will choose a day to take you back home to visit your family. Really? Zi Hua was so excited she nearly jumped up. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at him. Your Majesty, a gentleman's word, is as good as his bond. The man grunted in acknowledgement. He turned and walked away, swaying his hips. But unexpectedly, shortly after he walked out, he encountered a group of concubines. Hui Pin was the first to see him. Her eyes instantly lit up. She rushed over like a fly spotting meat. Greetings, Your Majesty. May Your Majesty be blessed with fortune and peace. Chu Jin looked at this exquisitely dressed concubine, his brow slightly furrowed. Why are you all here? Judging by her attire, her rank probably isn't very high. But since she can come to Fengwu Palace, her rank can't be too low either. Hui Pin pursed her lips into a faint smile, appearing very gentle and graceful. Our elder sister, the Empress, hasn't left the palace for a long time. In recent years, she also exempted us sisters from the morning and evening courtesies, granting us, sisters, many conveniences. Today, with nothing much to do, we thought we'd come for a visit. Her eyes were shimmering, glittering brilliantly in the sunlight. Those words of sisterly affection. How much of it is true? Only she herself knows. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet Your Majesty here. But the Empress sister manages the entire rear palace. It's only natural for Your Majesty to show more concern. Why did Your Majesty come from the heavenly hall? Chu Jin looked somewhat impatient. Such words in his younger days could be brushed off. But at his current age, how could he not understand the meaning? Stay in your own palace if you have nothing to do. The Empress is not in good health. She handles the affairs of the rear palace daily. She has no energy to entertain you. If you can't share the burden, at least don't create trouble. That remark was absolutely merciless. It's practically saying, Fengwu Palace does not welcome you. Don't come again in the future. Hui Pin's face turned deathly pale. Her lips trembled slightly. Tears welled up in her eyes. She said, with a choked voice, Your Majesty, it has been so long since I last saw you. I missed you far too much. That's why I thought of trying my luck at Her Majesty the Empress's place. Even if it's just a glimpse from afar, I would be content. Chu Jin also knew that he might have been somewhat unreasonable in this regard, but there was no other way. Entering the palace was their own choice, not something he forced upon them. Favoring them had nothing to do with love. It was more about placating the court officials. This shows he values the families they come from. I will visit you when I have free time, Chu Jin replied indifferently. Rong Zhao, standing nearby, saw this and let out a nearly inaudible sigh. She could tell this was just a perfunctory remark. The emperor hadn't visited the rear palace for a long time. Apart from spending a little time at the empress's place, he hadn't gone to any of the other consorts' palaces at all. Your Majesty is burdened with numerous state affairs. Please take good care of your health. As a mere woman, there is little I can do for your Majesty. I can only copy Buddhist sutras and pray to the heavens, hoping for your Majesty's health and well-being. Rong Zhao's face, still with a hint of baby fat, was quite adorable. Her soft, gentle voice also made one unconsciously think of glutinous rice balls. Her eyes were very round. When she looked at you, it was as if you were her entire world. Chu Jin looked at her and unconsciously thought of another charming face. They had just been intimately together and had only parted a short while ago, yet he was already thinking of her again. Sometimes, even while handling official duties, he would wonder, was she feeling unwell? Would she feel wrong not being by his side? This kind of feeling was something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Your thoughtfulness is appreciated. Noticing the palace maid behind her still carrying a food box, and moreover, one uniquely from the small kitchen of Fengwu Palace. Then the conversation turned to, the imperial kitchen had prepared many pastries. If you like them, just have someone go and get some. Rong Zhao Yi's eyes lit up. Thank you, Your Majesty. One of her lifelong passions was eating. However, this joy was not particularly great. We have other matters to attend to. We shall take our leave. Before the other two consorts could speak, Chu Jin directly turned around and left with Ming Fu. He moved so fast that no one could react in time. They could only watch his back gradually disappear around the corner. You glutton. All you ever think about is Hui Pin shot an annoyed glare at Rong Zhao Yi. Seeing her look so pleased only made her angrier. They had finally managed to catch the emperor, but only got to see him briefly. He probably didn't even remember who she was. How could she accept this? Sister Hui Pin, the emperor is truly heartless. I didn't even have time to speak, and he was already gone. The two consorts, who hadn't spoken yet, felt somewhat frustrated. This opportunity was completely missed by them. But why did the emperor come out from the heavenly hall? Who knows? By the way, where is that little maid of yours? Wasn't she said to be using the restroom? Why hasn't she returned after so long? Well, the little maid by your side hasn't returned either, has she? At the same time, Kaiju, who had always been taking care of Zihua, also noticed something unusual. Which palace are you from? What are you doing here? She was just about to go to the small kitchen to get the lotus seed and white fungus soup. But as soon as she stepped out, she saw an unfamiliar palace maid sneaking around near the side hall. Judging by her attire, she must be a senior maid from some palace. I took a wrong turn by accident. The other girl scratched her head sheepishly. smiling with an honest expression. My mistress is the Jade Beauty of Qiyu Palace. She came today to visit Her Majesty the Empress. I had an upset stomach from something I ate before leaving, so I went to use the restroom. But when I came out, I got lost. Fengwu Palace is the largest palace in the entire rear court, filled with pavilions and towers. There are also many artificial rockeries and pavilions. If one is unfamiliar with the place, it is indeed possible to get lost. But coming out with one's master, how could one still end up with a stomachache? Kaiju looked at her with a bewildered expression. But the other party still wore a simple and honest demeanor, without any flaws. I happen to be going out. You can come with me. Wait a moment. Dear sister, there is another palace maid who came with me. I don't know where she went. Could you accompany me to look for her? I'm afraid she might offend some noble person. If that happens, my master won't be able to save her. This palace maid looked very anxious. Several imperial consorts suddenly paid a visit. That alone is one thing. But now, 2 palace maids are lost in Fengwu Palace. No matter how you think about it, it seems suspicious. A properly trained palace maid. How could she wander around randomly, just because of a stomachache? This is someone else's territory. No matter what, one should be accompanied by the host's people. For them to wander around on their own like this, aren't they afraid of causing trouble? How could the 2 of us easily find someone in this vast Fengwu Palace? Since you are guests, then I must report this to my master. The Empress is kind-hearted. After learning the details, she certainly won't hold it against you. Don't worry. Kaiju spoke sincerely, appearing very kind-hearted. But that palace maid couldn't help twitching the corner of her mouth. Suppressing the tension, interrupted her. Sis, you really don't need to go through all this trouble. Her Majesty attends to numerous affairs of state every day. Where is the need to bother with such trivial matters? No need to trouble yourself. We can find it ourselves, Kaiju said with a fake smile. Then I'm sorry. I still have things to do. I can't help you find anyone. But Phoenix Roost Palace is not a place you can just wander around casually. I still consulted Theme Press before proceeding. Ask someone else to help you find it then. Seeing that the other personas completely unyielding, the little palace maid began to panic. Everyone in Fengwu Palace is as shrewd as they come. The problem has already been discovered. How could I let you go so easily? It's just that the other party really didn't commit any evil deeds, so we can only keep an eye on it for now. Let's wait until we find evidence before we talk about anything else. What's the situation outside? Zihua heard the noise, stretching lazily, walking outwards, seeing Kaiju standing in the courtyard. I couldn't help but ask, Kaiju, weren't you going to the small kitchen? Why are you still here? Who is this? You look a bit unfamiliar. The palace maid also had a blank look on her face. Living in the side hall of Fengwu Palace. Is she the queen's relative? But the 2 of them are not alike at all. Moreover, the Empress's younger sister passed away due to a difficult childbirth. This is something Gevrion in the harem knows. Thinking back to just now, the Emperor emerged from the side hall. This can't help but make people's imaginations run wild.